On this week's show, we're going to be talking about that Castleford Tigers game, and Sean Wane's picked his provisional England squad.
Welcome to the Rugby League Outsiders set of 6. This is our weekly news show where we share the good, the great and the noteworthy of Rugby League outside the heartlands. Let's get into it. Welcome back, and before we get into it, I must mention this video sponsor, which is More Than a Game. They do bespoke pitch marking. More on that in a bit. Right, Carl, 6 interesting news stories, as always. Loads of news going on in Rugby League, all formats, all forms, across all competitions. You've picked out a number of stories. We're going to kick off with that England training selection.
Yeah, we've got the only place to start, and we're building up for this big Ashes tour that's coming at the end of the season, and Sean Wane's picked his first England squad. Now, first thing we've got to say about this England squad is obviously a number of Omissions from this team who are going to be coming over from Australia. They're not included. However, he still hasn't gone without a little bit of controversy, this England squad. What were your thoughts when you first saw it?
My thoughts were that he misheard, right? And when International Rugby League said, right, okay, you need to sort this out and pick your England squad, I think he heard pick your injured squad, right? And there was a bit of a miscommunication there. So then he went out, got Jack Wellesby, Matty Ashton, Danny Walker, and some of the other injured. In fact, I think Batchel is injured as well, isn't he? So that was my take on it. Like, I don't quite get that. Well, I've got a theory on it, but that's what struck me first of all.
Yeah, I'm with you. That's what struck me, and I think it's a strange one. That I get that you might pick injured players that could potentially be available later on in the year, and therefore you still want to keep them with the England squad. However, I'm pretty sure there's players in that squad that they will not feature for England this year. Matty Ashton, especially, he's out with an ACL, isn't he? Even if some sort of miracle he managed to get himself back fit for the England series, there's no way he's going to be playing because he's not going to have enough match games under his belt. It's like you said, Wellesby, I think, is going to be out till around the playoffs. So maybe if Saints get into the playoffs and they get all the way to grand final, he might have a run of games under his belt there. But even so, it's strange that he's picked those players.
It is strange. I mean, it may be that he had a set number of players that he wanted to pick, right? And there are some players that he won't feature because of injury now, but are very much, that they're regulars in the England squad and want to keep them in the training camp, if you like. But from my mind, and I'd like a bit of clarity on this really, surely it's better to bring some of those fringe players in to get them to have a look at an international setup and dangle a carrot and perhaps, and show them that there is a route into this England squad. And, if you keep working hard and you keep, the likes of Jake Connor, Max Jowitt, some of those fringe players that I'd go as far as to say Broadbent from Hull KR, who all having stellar breakout seasons, but I've got nowhere near this training squad.
Well, the 3 players you just mentioned were the ones I was going to say to you. Where are these guys? Why aren't these? I mean, you could argue that Jake Connor is up there with one of the sort of the best performing players in the league at the moment. We all know about his form, and he can dip up and down, can't he? But he's having a great season, and to not have him in the squad at all, I do think it's a bit strange, especially when you've got injured players in the squad.
Yeah, Jake Connor's a bit of a funny one for me. I do wonder whether Sean Wayne thinks he's perhaps not got the pace, and perhaps his defence, isn't quite up to it for this squad. And then I also kind of wonder, like he's not your best fullback, is he? If you put Jake Connor and Max Jowitt together, you'd pick Max Jowitt at fullback. Well, and he's not your back start. I don't think he's your best halfback. If you put Jake Connor against the likes of Harry Smith, George Williams, Mikey Lewis, you know what I mean? He's not your best. He's not your best. But
I agree.
So where's his place then in the squad?
I agree, but you've got to have a utility player. you've got to have utility players in your squad. The thing with Jake Connor is he can drop into a number of different roles. You will pick up injuries more than likely during an Ashes series. So having good utility players in that squad isn't a bad thing, especially someone that can actually do a decent job in a number of positions. The other thing that's worth mentioning, Hull KR, right? Top of the table. They've got the best defence. They've got the best attack. They've only got 4 players in that squad.
As opposed to compared to Wigan.
How many have
even
Wigan
Leeds,
got? I mean,
even Leeds,
1, 2,
Warrington
3.
and Saints.
Wigan have got 7. Wire have got 5. Leeds have got 6 players in.
Saints who have got 6. So yeah, it's odd. And obviously 2 from Lee as well, Robin Mulhern and Owen Trout. Owen Trout, by the way, we started this campaign right at the start of the season. We went to watch him, we're like, Owen Trout is just clatting people, if clatting's a word. And, definitely should have been considered for the England squad. So good to see him in there.
Yeah, Mulhern and Trout both definitely deserve their positions. Yeah, the big one for me is Max Jowitt.
Yeah. Can I just go back to... we'll talk about Max Jowitt in a second, but just going back to Jake O'Connor, and then we can Jake Connor, and then we can move on. There's an aspect to Jake's game that I would like to see against the Aussies, right? Especially with a double tape with Mikey Lewis, and that's the shithousery.
Niggle.
The niggle. I think Jake Lewis. I think a Jake Lewis and Mikey Lewis tag team.
Jake Lewis.
Fucking hell. I think a Jake Connor and Mikey Lewis tag team on some of these Aussie players will rattle their heads, and they would get a couple of players off the pitch straight away because they'd lash out.
Could you imagine those two lining up in halves? I don't think half a team would have a clue what we were going to do and what style of play we're going to play or anything. He's going to pick George Williams and Harry Smith, isn't he?
Yeah, of course he is. But the other thing, just to go back, you look at the number of tries that Jake Connor has set up. We're going to need tries to get in the Ashes, and he is providing tries week in, week out. So, a real noticeable omission. And there's lots of people online as well suggesting that Jake Connor, there's not many say he's not up to it. You know what I mean? I've seen a few, but there's not many. The majority is that they would like to have seen him in this squad. Right, Max Jowitt. So what's your comments on Max Jowitt?
He should be in the squad. It's quite simple. He's one of the best performing fullbacks in the Super League this year. I think there's a big case of here is attention who you play for and not how you're playing. I mean, for Wakey to only have 2 players in there, I think he's a bit dire, really.
Yeah, well, I mean, there are, Mike McMeekan, Tom Johnston, right? The renowned players, aren't they?
Yep.
Mike McMeekan, by the way, an outsider, a true outsider there.
Yeah, he is, yeah.
So it's good to have him in the squad. But, Max Jowitt, I mean, it's a weird one, that. He's just been performing outstandingly all season, and he's nowhere near this training squad, which is...
So I'm just looking at that team now. If Wane had to pick a starting 13, who are you playing at fullback?
I know there's no obvious fullback, is there? I mean, Michael Lewis, he's done some time. I think Harry Robertson's played a bit of fullback in the past. But other than that,
Harry Robertson's played fullback, and he is a good fullback.
I think Ash Handley has played fullback before. I don't think it's his best position by a long way. But there's no one screaming out as an out-and-out fullback there.
Well, you've got Harry Robertson, but you're taking a little bit of a risk there. But for me, if you're picking a starting 13 right now out of who's fit, Max Jowitt makes that 13 for me at the minute. So I think it's a strange one that he hasn't made the squad.
Yeah, so it's a weird one. It is a weird one. That said, there's some plenty of quality throughout the squad. There really is. It almost kind of... Lots of people making a comment about the sheer number of Wigan players that are in that squad, but I just think Wigan have lots of homegrown players, don't they? And
they do, yeah.
You look at Hull KR, and there's like 4 from Hull KR. And I need to look through the squad there and I wonder if there's more international players.
What about Joe Burgess?
Yeah, I know. There's loads of players.
What about Broadbent?
Yeah, Broadbent, 100%. 100% is playing out of his skin. And so is Joe Burgess, and gives you some size and pace. We've seen bits of pace from Joe Burgess that I haven't seen for a number of seasons. He's made some breaks, and he's loving his rugby. He just seems to be playing with a smile on his face, and that goes a long way. It goes a long way.
Another player quite likely rile the Aussies up as well.
Yeah.
He'd get stuck into them big time.
Definitely.
Talking about the Aussies, should we move on to the... I think the other thing to say there is it's a 30-odd man squad, that is.
Yeah.
They can only pick a 24-man squad for the Ashes. We've still got a lot of Aussies to come over. So really, we don't need to think about it too much because it is going to change. However, gives you a little bit of insight into Shaun Wane's, how he's thinking about this squad, especially the fact that there's a couple of players just haven't made it.
You sort of mentioned the Aussies then, Carl.
Yeah, so the good news is we're already a step ahead of the Aussies here because they don't have a head coach. Freddie Fittler, I think, has been asked. He's ruled himself out. He's not going to be available. I think Cam Smith is probably favourite now to lead the Kangaroos over here. But it came out in the news this week. They've got no flights booked. They've got no training grounds booked. They currently don't have a head coach. And we're only 3 months away from this Ashes series. So they've got no staff. So
they've got a kit man. We know they've got a kit man.
No, well, even we know.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we know he's ruled himself out.
Has he completely said no then, the old kit man?
Well, he told us, didn't he? I
can't remember what he said.
We'll put some context here. Frank, the kit man at Lee Leopards, he's done the kit for the Australian national side before, hasn't he? Whenever they've toured over here.
Yeah.
But yeah, he said to us that he didn't think he was going to do it this year. That might be a bit of an exclusive.
It might be. And the reason being that it was just full on. What he said the difference with the Aussies and anything else is every training session is intense. It's like a test match. Just a training session is intense. And it was just, he's at the point in his life where he's like, I'm just not.
Yeah, I just hope they're in complete disarray by the time they arrive, which obviously they won't be. We should just not make any training bases available to them either.
That's it,
get them on a park somewhere.
Yeah. Right, okay. Great story, that, Carl. Right, let's move on to tackle 2. Right, we've got to, Carl, talk about one of the biggest talking points, certainly online at the minute, and that is that Rhyse Martin incident. Okay, so at the time of when we first started to look at this, we played the clip. We were going to put a link to the clip below, so if anybody hadn't seen it, we're not going to play it on here because of copyright issues and YouTube being a twat and all that kind of stuff. But anyway,
that's one way to get
you watched it. You watched it, Carl. And straight, well, you talked me through it. You didn't see an incident there, did you?
Well, no, it was like you sent it to me, and because I didn't see all of this game, and I was like, "Where's the incident?" I really couldn't see it. I was like, "Am I missing part of the video here?" Because I just couldn't see anything, and still now I can't see anything. I can't believe that ended up being a grade E charge and ended up in a tribunal. It was just mental.
Yeah, well, I mean, it did. There is a pull of the shirt. Mate, I mean, there was reports of like a pull of the collar. I'm not sure it is the collar. I think it's sort of just on the players. In fact, it was Max Jowitt that went down, wasn't it? It was a pull on his where his lat is. You know what I mean? Like the middle part of the shirt. And you see it all the time, if I'm honest.
It wasn't a pull.
Well, it was a pull.
It's obviously... To say that he'd pull is like he's disconnected from the tackle and then he went and did something after. He's still
ragged him,
still connected to the tackle at that point. I think it's just absolute nonsense. It's a bit of a non-story.
Well, it was a story because he was potentially facing a 6-week ban. Right, now this is going to link round to our next story that we're going to talk about. We're going to look at this Wigan thing. Right, so I'll save a bit of my rant until then. But yeah, the story was that he was potentially facing a 6-week ban for something that was just being scrutinised so much without context, and within a split second of the tackle, I'm pretty sure, unless Max Jowitt let out an almighty yelp, Rhyse Martin had no idea he was injured, and he was just like trying to encourage the speed of the play. It was just something from nothing. Now, it did go to tribunal, and, they actually saw nothing in it, but they did scrutinise it, and that's, it's a bit of a strange one, really.
Yeah. So, in a week where there's been lots of controversy this week, but that, for me, wasn't one of them. Although, the fact that it made the headlines is just an odd one for me. Completely odd.
I wonder if it's some of the Rugby League journos just throwing a bit more fuel on the fire, especially in relation to this next tackle where we're going to talk about the Wigan and Cass incident. So again, we're not going to play the clip because of copyright issues and that kind of stuff. But in essence, I'm sure you would have seen it if you've got anything to do with rugby league. If you haven't, welcome back to Earth. Get yourself from under the rock and kind of check this out. So in essence, Harry Smith hung off Josh Sims, right, and prevented him from sort of making any effect on the ball, right. The video ref played it back, who was Aaron Moore. And during his commentary of analysing the incident, he was like, nothing to see here. The whole world took a sharp intake of breath and was like, what? He was like literally hanging off him. He had his arm round him, you know what I mean? And you can see Josh having to check his run, turn to face the opposite direction, then recheck himself, gather his feet and crack on. And the video referee were hearing him say, yeah, nothing in that. Yeah, there's not, he hasn't pulled him back. No, there's nothing to see. Okay, move on to the, and everybody, including the commentators, in fact, John Wells, and I think was it Fraser Deaton, was it? There was the commentating on this game was speechless, and the immortal words "I can't speak" actually came out in commentary. Such was the shock of this, right? And the ripples have carried on right up, and it's still going now, where people are talking about this. It triggered this story that we've had week in, week out about how some of these referees clearly play with a Wigan shirt on underneath their referee shirts. Well, that's the discussion going on. People are asking questions and making statements. No. You can have your say in a minute, but that's kind of where we're at now, Carl. And obviously there's been a few ripples on the back of this incident. One of the first ones that Danny McGuire came out straight after the game, and I don't think he let rip. I think he was relatively reserved, although he did question.
He emptied his pockets on the table, didn't he?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, here's my fine. I don't know what it's going to be, but yeah, he's definitely going to take one for that.
Well, which I think, I don't agree with that at all. I think it's clearly. Well, I think it's well within his rights to get frustrated. Bearing in mind, one of the next things that happened was the RFL or the match officials, the head of the match officials, Phil Benton, then came out and made an apology, right, to Castleford. Well, whoopee, because it's not going to change the events that's happened. No, Castleford needed that win, right? And I'm not saying they would have got. In fact, I'll ask you the question in a minute, but like there's no. In fact, and then just to make it even worse and rub salt in the wound, so you got this apology that actually means nothing. And then now they're going to find Danny McGuire for his frustrations when they've already acknowledged that it was a mistake, and it just doesn't seem fair.
We'll see where that goes, I suppose. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there in your big 5-minute rant, but look, referees can make mistakes, can't they? Everyone's human. The issue I have with this one, referees and the light of the day, making a decision on the pitch at such quick pace, mistakes can happen quite easily, and I think everyone's got to accept that. The thing that gets everybody with this one is that it went to the screen, and he had, well, we all know how long video referee decisions take these days. He had multiple camera angles and plenty of time to look at it. So the fact that he got it wrong, so wrong, is an odd one for me.
Well, what makes it worse is when you see that unfold and you see the commentary whilst he analyses the incident, it then throws every other decision after that into question, because he's made such a glaring error. Such a very obvious. So how you can then go on and make tough decisions and people back those decisions afterwards, it's very tough. Because almost your character, your judgment has been brought into question. And it was done very publicly, so he's certainly not done himself any favours.
No, right, okay, I get that. However, I don't think we should be throwing referees under the bus here, because my opinion of refereeing in Super League these days is that we actually have a very good, decent set of referees. And I know all fans from all teams, every time their side loses, it's always the referee's fault, isn't it? We've all been there and we've all done it. But generally, I think the standard of refereeing is pretty good.
No, I agree with that. I completely agree with that. I think, and it's a thankless task, innit?
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
it is.
Like why anybody would put their hand up to be a referee, I've got no idea. I've no aspirations of ever doing it.
Nope,
you know what I mean.
neither.
So hats off to them. And without the referees, don't have a game. We know that. But on the same token, there's got to be some kind of accountability, right? Now, so. And my point is, Danny McGuire can go on there and he can make a couple of comments, right? How dare you slag off the match officials? We're going to slap you with a fine, right? And I think personally he was quite reserved and quite respectful of it. You imagine if Lee Radford had done this. You know what I mean? Imagine what Lee Radford had been like.
Oh, Brian McDermott would have had a field day as well.
Exactly.
He'd have loved it, but Brian McDermott.
And I think Danny McGuire was pretty professional and held back.
Okay, but
in the in the heat of the moment as well, where and Aaron Moore is kind of like, oh yeah, okay, makes mistake, never mind, on you go. What?
Well,
it's just not.
No,
it's
because
not right.
The thing is, Danny McGuire might not get a fine.
Oh, come on, Carl.
No, he might not.
What? All right, whatever.
Okay, well, we'll see next week.
Yeah.
After we've had the comments from the match officials department saying that they got it wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe he doesn't get a fine this week.
Right. Okay.
So we'll revisit this next week, I think.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I think we'll. I'm not as
when you're on about Aaron Moore and whether there's no accountability and all the rest of it. Well, actually, the match official appointments have come out for this week, and it does by all cases look like he's been dropped this week. So there is repercussions.
I think they make if there is repercussions, and you're right. Okay. So at the minute he's without match.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Which is a term I've just made up, because I don't know whether he's been dropped or he's just like without match, because we've had no further comment from the officials.
Yeah, but
right now, no.
Should we?
Why?
Because it's for internal lies.
Right. Let's compare it then. So the match officials, they govern our matches. They make sure that it's safe, make sure it's enjoyable, and it matches flows and all that kind of stuff. Right. So imagine now. Let's superimpose it onto police. If the police do something wrong. Right, they can get suspended, they get dragged through the press, all this lot, okay, because they've got to have some accountability. Everyone's got a code of conduct, right? Even when you go to war, you have a code of conduct, right? So, but at the minute, I can't, this is what I'd want, right? And people watching this, let me know if I'm way off track, and I'll take it if I'm way off track, but I'm pretty sure some people will agree with me. I don't want Aaron Moore sacking, right? That's freaking ridiculous. But I want a further statement from the RFL explaining what the process has been now that such a glaring mistake. I mean, this is a terrible mistake. Terrible. When the rest of the nation, even the opposing fans, Wigan fans, right? We know what Wigan fans can be like. They are staunch, ancient till they die.
Yeah.
Right? Even they were saying, I don't know how we got away with that. Right? Now that tells a story, That tells a story. So I want the officials to come out and say, okay, this is the action we've taken in light of the thing, right? So when you get caught speeding, you know what I'm talking about here. You get put on a speed awareness course, don't you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Take your driving license off you for 7 days.
But yeah. So and it's
then your car insurance costs more.
But just to go, do you know what? Right, he's not got a match this week. I don't like that. I want some more information. It's like, what has actually happened?
Yeah, but it's like you start doing all that. It's like a public hanging.
No, it's not.
It is. I think you're just going too far, and then I think you're putting even more of a target on a referee then. And then the next game, the referee. Mental. I don't agree with what you're saying.
Well, you don't have to agree, do you?
No.
You can have your own opinion. That's fine. But how does Danny... Look at this then. We'll move on in a minute as well, because I know we're labouring the point, but how can Danny McGuire say a couple of comments on the TV, right, and then be facing a fine, and then a match official... It's a terrible mistake. Terrible. Everybody looking at and they're just they've got to pick the jaw up the floor.
I'll put this to you then. I think coaches should actually be free to say what they believe in post-match press conferences.
Yeah,
that's if he believes the referee's got something wrong, I do think they should be able to say.
But so this is my point. It's almost like they've got too much power, and you can't, despite the fact that they're not whiter than white, you can't. Don't you dare say anything about the match officials. You know what I mean? Otherwise, they'll slap a fine on you. However, match official, this this incident, let's call it this, let's take the people out of it. This incident is so glaringly wrong, but nothing, we've got some half-arsed apology. You know, it's a tough one. Anyway, put your thoughts in the comments because let's hear from the masses, all 3 people that watched the video, and see what they say. Right, let's move on, Carl, shall we?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay, let's move on then, Carl, to the viewers' mailbag, where this week we've partnered up with More Than a Game. They do bespoke pitch marking services, and they have partnered up with us to provide you with the viewers' mailbag. Carl, tell us a little bit about More Than a Game.
More Than a Game, they do grassroots, basically any level underneath Super League, they do pitch marking for, and they use robots to do it, and they also do, you know, the super cool stencils that you see on professional pitches. They do them, but for grassroots and community clubs. So any tier under Super League, so basically any club that doesn't have a full-time groundsman, these guys will come and mark your pitch out. They use robots to do it, so you get proper professionally marked pitches. You can have a red zone on there, and then they'll also put stencils and logos on your pitch, just like you get at Super League and you know, all the top professional clubs. But the good thing about this is the community clubs can offer this out for sponsorship. So I don't know, you could be at Siddle, for instance, and you could go to Siddle, they'll mark out your pitch, absolutely beautiful, and then they'll put a sponsor painting on the side of the pitch, and your community club can sell that space, and therefore it's a new revenue stream for community club. It's awesome.
So we're talking about like win-win. So first of all, the club gets either a discounted or no cost line marking.
Yeah.
Because it's been paid for by the sponsor.
Yeah.
But it's top level. It's not Uncle Fred with a tab hanging out of his mouth.
Nope.
You know what I mean? Had a few too many siders, lines everywhere. We have seen them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's not that. But then you've actually got something to offer a sponsor, because like some clubs don't have much of a social media presence, and they sort of say, you know, can you sponsor our team? We'll give you, you know, we'll name you in the press release and all this kind of stuff. And there's not actually a lot of coverage there, but they might get a load of supporters or family or parents or whatever, and they can offer them an actual physical image on the pitch.
Yeah.
You know, that looks great.
Yeah,
you know,
it's double whammy really. So you all your supporters that are there on the day are going to see this, you know, colourful banner painted onto the grass pitch. So you get all the fans seeing it on the day. More than likely, what I've seen is most teams are having the team photograph taken on the pitch with these banners on the floor. They end up on social media as well, so that gets spread even further. So it's just win-win for everybody. And I think the other point to mention is, what the guys have told me, is that the kids that are playing on these pitches absolutely love it, because it's just that added layer of professionalism that they're bringing to a community club. A lot of players aren't going to get to play at Headingley or, you know, professional sports ground, but if you can just make your community club just stand out that little bit more, you know, the players absolutely love it. They just walk a little bit taller.
And this is any sport, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's not just rugby that these guys do.
Yeah, they do plenty of sports. Yeah, football, all sorts. So yeah. Okay,
so that is More Than a Game. More in them in a bit. By the way, if you are interested, need your pitch marking, and you like the idea of these graphics and logos on your pitch, then give them a shout. There'll be a link down below, and just mention that you've come from the Rugby League Outsiders, and everyone will feel great. Right, so let's get into this viewers' mailbag then, Carl. A couple of things. Last week we talked a bit about the Captain's Challenge, and I picked out a couple of comments on that because I want to put some depth and a few alternative views on the Captain's Challenge. So the first one then, from, I'm not going to read out the name, you can see on the screen. Captain's Challenge works really well in the NRL. A really good percentage of ref decisions are overturned, and it adds an extra layer of tactics to the game. But importantly, the NRL is no longer slowed down by going to the video ref for every try. Generally now, the refs trust their instincts and blow a try, and the video ref checks the tape regardless, and if the ref got it wrong, they overturn the decision. It works really well. No one is complaining that the NRL is too slow. And this is a real key point. And actually something that you meant, you was talking about this, Carl, weren't you? That you just like let the game flow, trust your referees on the pitch.
Yeah.
But then if there is an incident, the video referee, God, we talked about this video referee week in, week out, they can put, message in the ear and they can overturn it.
Yeah, I mean, after a try's been scored, you've always got your conversion to come anyway, haven't you? So I think most of the time the referees get it spot on, and a lot of the time, if they send it up for a try, generally they ain't far wrong, are they? Most of the time. So go with the referee's decision. Allow the conversion to be taking place, because it always takes a couple of minutes after a try anyway. By the time the teams have celebrated, they've got the players behind the sticks and all the rest of it. Yeah, allow the officials to play it back whilst he's setting up for a conversion or whatever. And like I say, what they're doing in the NRL seems to be working, so maybe that's the model that we should adapt.
Yeah, definitely. It all revolves around the not slowing down the game, the spectacle of the game.
I mean, that's an issue I think a lot of people have had this year. We all want correct decisions to be made, but at the same time, we don't want games to go on for hours.
Okay, moving on then. Again, I won't mention the name. I can't read these things out. I don't know if it's PT, Petty, whatever. I ain't got my glasses either. Right, not a fan of the Captain's Challenge personally. It seemed like a good idea at the time, but you're right, and it just slows the game down. Also, the video refs are a joke. The last few games I've watched, I've seen myself screaming at the TV at how many times they have to watch the replay, then watch it again from another 6 angles before making a decision, when everyone at home can see it was a try. So following on that thing, and I think this sort of, it echoes what we were like at the start of the season. We was quite excited about the Captain's Challenge, thought it'd bring a new dynamic. It doesn't affect the NRL, but changed our mind sort of with a couple of weeks in.
Yeah, I think we both agree that Captain's Challenge is pretty decent, isn't it? But it's the same thing. It takes too long, and the fact that the video referee decisions on the tries have been taking so long, it's too much. However, as we both said, they seem to have sped it up actually, which is a good sign. Right.
And the final comment I want to pick out is in terms of Wigan's performance recently. Now, we made a couple of comments that are Wigan getting complacent, a little bit complacent? You know, have they took the foot off the gas a little bit mid-season? We know they'll get the foot down on the throttle again towards the end of the season. But so basically, very complacent. Even the coach is getting a bit above himself in more ways than one. They need to wake up. Otherwise, they'll find themselves being dropped by the likes of Hull KR, Leeds, Lee, all there to take them from me. So that's a comment there, Carl. Any follow up on that?
Yeah, I think Wigan have been a little bit complacent last few weeks. I think we saw it 2 weeks ago. I didn't expect it to roll on for 3 weeks, actually. So, yeah, it's interesting that this Wigan fan who's commented saying that Matt Peate's getting above his station a little bit. I mean, what do you think on that?
I think confidence can sometimes be interpreted as arrogance, and I think sometimes, you know, there is a bit of that, but as well, you know, Wigan have performed at such a high level, basically redlined it for weeks and weeks and months, and actually seasons.
Years,
and whether that's like sustainable. They've also like lost Bevan French as we record now, 8 weeks out. You know, he was a massive player for that. I know one player don't make a team, but Jesus Christ, you know, he's not far off.
Taking the best player in the Super League out of your team definitely makes a difference. I stand by that all day long. Wigan always have a dip when Bevan French isn't playing.
Well, you even see it at Catalan. You know, Sam Tompkins has played this week, and they were a better outfit, you know, just with his presence there as well. All right, moving on. So remember, as always, if you've got comments, stick them in the video. We may well pick yours out, and also consider joining the channel. There is a link down below. Now, we don't have many members because we don't actually know like what we can provide extra for members to join, but it does help support the channel. If you enjoy this, if you enjoy me giving Carl crap about his haircut and that kind of stuff, then join, because it does help keep this channel running. Can we move on to a bit of a feel-good story now, Carl?
Yeah, definitely.
And that is the development of Bellevue by Wakefield Trinity. Okay, now they've done a phenomenal job, right? And I'm going to sum it up. Well, in fact, I'll save that in a bit. But you know, they've made so many changes. They've released a story on their website. Okay, again, we'll put a link down below if we remember. Apologies if we don't. Couple of things. Straight away, Bellevue has been transformed, hasn't it?
Yeah, big time.
You know, big time. The capacity has been risen. It was 8,000, just over 8,000 before. It's now like 9,200. That's considerably more fans that they can cram into there. And it's shown in their average attendances this year. So in 2024, the average attention was just over 5,600. This year is 7,400. Now, we know they've been promoted to Super League and that has an effect. And they're performing incredibly well and that has an effect too. But without the right stadium, like, you just can't get them in. So that is a real good news. What's your take on these changes to Bellevue, Carl?
Match day experience. If you're an away fan, right, I generally, I stopped going. I didn't used to go to whenever they were playing at Bellevue. I didn't used to go because just want an enjoyable match day experience. Fast forward now, right? It's looking incredible, and it's now one of the grounds where away fans want to go there because it's transformed so much. It's unrecognisable from 6 years ago. It's not even. It doesn't even look like the same stadium anymore.
They made some big changes, haven't they? Like they've reviewed some like the actual stadium. The recent changes. They've made the corners so they can get more people in there and all that kind of stuff. But also, in some places, they've just given it a lick of paint and put up some new livery, right? And there's that saying, isn't it, you can't polish a turd. But they have made this place look outstanding just with a lick of paint in most places. Minor changes.
They've improved almost every part of the stadium. And it's still going on. They've still got one side to do, haven't they? Every... And I think the thing to say here as well is, like, when a lot of teams look at getting a new stadium, it often falls through because they can't afford it. Now, Wakey have been smart. They've added they've added 2 new stands technically, haven't they? They've done the terracing behind the sticks, but they haven't completely broke the bank, have they? Improving the stadium facilities. Yeah,
it's not like they've just had a blank check, do whatever it takes. You can see where they've done it.
Gradually,
gradually, and with a let's call it efficient financing, because it's not just like an open book, spend whatever you need, and it's not been penny pinching either.
No.
It's just the basics done incredibly well. Cal, is this one of the good things that's fallen out of IMG? Do you think IMG has prompted this?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, I think it is.
It's definitely given them a framework.
We'd have to speak to Matt Ellis, wouldn't we, and actually, see why he's improved every part of that club. Since he came in, he's improved every part of that club. And I think stadium is a big factor for fans going to grounds. And I'll say this, I'll be careful how I say this.
I'm intrigued.
There are some teams I know where fans will prefer to go to away games than they do their own team's home ground because it's a better viewing experience.
Bradford. Am I right? No comment. Real interesting comments there. And we might as well move on to the Williams Weekly this week, which I've kind of picked out. The question is, are clubs better to be investing in their own stadium? What are the pros and cons to that? There are cons, but there's also a lot of pros as well. Or are they better to have a shared facility, community-owned stadium, council-owned stadium, that kind of thing? And obviously there's a mix of all that in Super League right now, and Championship, and League One as well. So let's just have a little discussion there, Cal. So what is the best case scenario?
The best case scenario for me is if a club owns their own ground and they've got complete control over it. Best example of that, St Helens.
Yeah.
Their ground, they do what they want. They're branding all over it. They get all the revenue from the money, from kiosks and all the rest of it. So I'd say, St Helens. Well, Leeds as well. Yeah,
Leeds as well.
Leeds as well. Yeah.
And so you're saying that's what you prefer. You want a club to have their own stadium. I mean, IMG definitely want clubs to have their own stadium, don't they?
Yeah.
The percentage of revenue from the stadium is a big part of IMG grading.
I mean, I'm not bothered whether clubs own their ground completely or not. I think put it into 3 categories. I think top category, you own your own ground.
Yeah.
Category 2, community-owned, council-owned stadium.
An example being
shared.
Lee Sports Village.
Lee Sports Village, the Leopards Den. 3rd tier, football ground that you just play at.
Hull FC, there's an example.
Yeah.
Well, that's a weird one, isn't it?
No, I think Hull FC is bit of a hybrid one actually. No, I'd say is it Wigan?
Wigan. Yeah, Wigan.
Wigan's predominantly owned by Wigan. Oh, okay, Huddersfield.
Yeah, definitely.
Let's go Huddersfield. Tier 3. Football ground. Huddersfield just play there.
So let's look at some of the pros and cons then. Obviously, having your own stadium is going to be such a financial drain. You know what I mean? It's such a big thing. I know there's the benefit, you can actually make more money. But if you're not getting, perhaps you haven't got the performances, or, the club is having to spend in other areas, then the maintenance and the upgrading of the stadium, and it's like, a stadium, any building, is like if you're not maintaining it, it's depleting, isn't it? Not depleting, deprecating. Deprecating.
Yeah.
It's getting worse. You constantly got to get it propped up and actually be pushing it on. So the massive drains of money. You've got to staff them. You've got to maintain them. You know what I mean? You've got to pay for the utilities and all that kind of stuff. It's huge. So that's some of the cons there. The other thing as well is is there issues with scheduling? Because haven't there been problems with Saints where they've not been able to? Oh no, sorry, Wigan where they've not been able to play at their home ground. I remember.
I've seen it happen before. I mean, we don't get it too much these days with the football season ending and the rugby league season being through that. But yeah, it definitely happens, doesn't it? So certain teams can only play. Predominantly, you'll notice some teams play on a certain day of the week a lot more than others. So yeah, it definitely has an effect. And
then I suppose another con is that if you've got something that's council owned, let's look at Salford. I mean, big part of the problem with Salford, originates
that stadium's just
that's just a mess, isn't it? But if you're not getting the support from the council, or you haven't got the ability to maximise revenue because of the council and all that, it can be. We know what councils are like. Jesus, there's a lot of red tape and. You know what I mean? They just seem to throw problems up, a lot of bureaucracy about that. So there's lots of issues with that. I wonder what people watching this, what they would like to see, whether they understand the benefits of having something that's council-owned, community-owned, shared with a football team, or whether they really want to see their club to have their own stadium. I mean, Hull are not giving up their stadium, are they? You know what I mean? No. They are not. There's no way. They are. All systems go to improve capacity. I'm pretty sure they cram a few extra fans in every week. Beyond capacity, and they just hang around the food stalls and stuff like that. But
Craven Street's got 2,000 capacity.
Carl, what about if you've got your own stadium, you've got no restrictions there. What about being able to create a tailored fan experience? Well,
that's massively important, isn't it, these days? I think rugby league isn't just... It's become a family sport, and ever since Super League, actually, rugby league became a family sport, and I think that fan zones and fan experiences now are a bigger part of the game as the actual 80 minutes of rugby league on the field. Some clubs do it way better than others. I think Hull with Craven Street, probably up there, one of the top ones. Lee Leopards with the live stage and everything that they have going on is right up there. I know they don't have a dedicated fan zone, but they kind of make it work, don't they, in the ground the best they can. So yeah, I mean, let me try to think about other clubs that own their own stadium.
Bellevue, a lot of the development they've done is with the food and the bars and all that around there. I'll tell you another one that I really liked was when London was in the Super League last year, and we went to their stadium and they had all the little eateries and everything around the perimeter. That was pretty cool as well.
Yeah, the Cherry Records Stadium. Yeah, and they've got a bar as you enter the ground, and they had live singers on in the bar as well. So yeah, I mean we haven't been to Catalan, have we?
No.
I'd be interested to see what's going on around Catalan. Need to put that on the old bucket list, mate.
Well, Catalan have quite often got, the best thing, and that's just decent weather. Decent weather just makes anything seem better, doesn't it? So it's an interesting discussion point, and I'm sure there's loads of pros and cons that we haven't discussed and don't even consider, and you don't know until you're actually in it. So We might try and, if people are interested in hearing more about this, we might try and get some people that, at the clubs that run the stadiums and get their different opposing views. Carl, any final afterburners for this week's Set of Six?
If you just can subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what we're doing. Our numbers keep going up and up and up, which is great. However, subscribing to the channel makes a huge difference. We've got a huge number of people who watch these videos every week don't actually subscribe. So if you could just hit that subscribe button, it'd mean the world to us.
Yeah, and remember, if you need your pitch marking, then get yourself over to More Than a Game and check them out. And remember to tell them that the Rugby League Outsiders sent you. And something else I want to tell you about, Carl.
Go on.